Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day. Thanks for joining me today for the morning fishing report. A little bit chillier this morning. I thought it was going to be warmer. Low 60s when I left the dock, air temp. Water temp's the same, 75, 76, give or take. I've been fishing spinners again this morning. I only brought one rod and I only brought spinners with me. I brought 3 different ones, but I only brought spinners with me, and I'm not fishing any live bait on my spinners. I'm fishing either Berkeley gulp crawlers or power bait max scent flatworms, both of which have caught fish. Not today, I shouldn't say that. I've had 2 bite offs, one on each, one on a crawler and one on a on the gulp crawler and one on the power bait flatworm. Bit the tail right off it. And when you're in the weeds, you don't know. I mean, a walleye could just as easily bite it off as a pickerel. You know, it's hard to say, but neither of which fish I saw. I came back up and set up. You know, I set on them and there was nothing there. But I had quite a few comments and questions yesterday about my setup and what I'm doing and why and where and all that fun stuff. So we're going to go through it real quick. So all my rods, so since I've started with Douglas rods, those are really the only 2 rods I fish. I have 2 of them, and I've got the 6/8 is my blade bait rod. I do other things with that rod, but that's predominantly what that is. And this 7/6 that I'm fishing now, I had originally got to throw swim baits on, you know, thinking that I would have my boat back by now and that I would be out here fishing smallmouth more exclusively, and then also traveling with my boat. I had planned on being up in the northern bays, Chameau, Henderson of Lake Ontario, as well as the St. Lawrence River by now. But, you know, without the boat, obviously, I'm not doing that. But I'd got this longer rod, this 7/6 extra fast medium action to throw swim baits with. What I'm finding is it throws these spinners incredibly. And the longer rod, I think, gives you a little more control over them. If you're trying to just tick the weeds, I believe that it allows you to get that line up, change the attitude of the, there's thousands of little perch in here. I mean, if I showed you my rod tip, the whole time I'm reeling, it's going like that. So I like that. I'm finding that I like this longer rod to do this. Now, all of my rods are set up the same, no matter what they are. It's braid on the reel to a double uni knot or whatever knot you choose to go braid to fluorocarbon, and then a fluorocarbon leader. I tend to run my leaders longer than most people. I have it to where my knot, my junction knot between the braid and the fluorocarbon is it comes down to right about here in this area, just above my reel. I don't reel the knot onto my reel. I suppose you could, I don't. So that leaves me, you know, in this particular rod, it's 7.5 feet. So let's say 7 from reel to tip, and then I'll hang it down another 4 to 5 feet, if not another full length 7. So I mean, my leader is somewhere between 10 and 15 feet long. People are going to say, oh, that's too long. Okay. It's too, whatever. It doesn't, to me, my thinking is that the more fluorocarbon, the better. I mean, you know, I'm fishing bright yellow braid so I can see it. I don't want them to see it. And even though it doesn't really, you know, so there are other bodies of water in upstate New York that have a lot clearer water than Oneida Lake, but Oneida Lake's pretty clear. And it's a whole lot clearer than in the not so distant past, where, you know, you heard Tony Buffett talk about it the other day when we were with him. this lake used to be green, and the clarity was a couple feet at best if you were lucky. That's not the case anymore. So fluorocarbon is invisible. So I believe that I'd rather have more invisibility between my braid and my presentation than less, and so that's what I do. Again, you could argue it, you could go either way. I've caught fish with as little as 18 to 24 inches of fluorocarbon leader, and I catch fish now with anywhere from let's say 8 to 15 feet. So anyway, so I run my leader long. Now, since I've got these new reels, these are 30 series Lew's Hyper Mag spinning reels. They're 6.2 to 1 gear ratio. So it's a little bit faster. And I know one thing that I'm finding. So the other day when Don and I were out fishing these, he was fishing a worm on his and I'm fishing plastics. So there's difference number one. And 99% of the time, live bait is better than fake bait. So he outfished me probably 4 or 5 to nothing for a little stretch. Then I hit 2 or 3 right in a row and he stopped. Some of that's just, there's a lot of factors in that. But I've been fishing plastics. I don't feel like dealing with worms, especially on the jet ski. So one thing I did watch, and I'm always watching, especially when I'm with somebody and they're catching fish and I might not be. Even if I am catching fish, I still watch. He was retrieving it extremely slow. Now, whether you're throwing the hammer spinner or whoever, whatever blade you're throwing, you'd be shocked at how slowly you can get these things to still spin and move through the water. And I don't know always that slower is better presentation-wise, but now the other day, Don seemed to be really tuning them up. My guess is he's fishing, I think he fishes Fluger Presidents, and I'm almost positive they're 5.0 to 1, so it's a slower reel. And he was going slow with it. So I know one thing I have to be mindful of, I believe, is to see if I really slow this reel down, painfully slow, if I get bit more. I tend to be a little faster. I tend to power fish a little more. Again, you hyper snap a jigging wrap, and they're still grabbing it. So why wouldn't they be able to grab a spinner that's going a little bit faster than normal? But it does not take much speed to get this thing to run. So, okay, so we've got rod, my main line is braid. I told you guys the other day, I switched both of my new reels to Cortland Master Braid. This particular rod, I went 2 different sizes. My jigging only rod, I went 8-pound test, which is 0.05 1/1000th of an inch, which is, in the old days, that used to be a direct equivalent to the pound test if you were talking about monofilament. So the 8-pound was 0.05, and the 10-pound, which I have on here, is 0.05505. It's the thinnest braid I've ever used, and much thinner than that Suffix 832 I've been using in the same 8-pound diameter. In the same 8-pound. I love it. So I'm going 30 series, 7/6, 10-pound Cortland Master Braid. Then we come down to the working end of this rig. This particular spinner is not a hammer. It's one that Tony Buffa gave me the other day. It's a gentleman that's out on the East End, and he's making them, and he's selling them at Lakeport grocery store there, or Lakeport convenience store, right before Freemax, where Tony keeps his boat. And so I had people asking me about this too. And these spinners are basically the same. The only difference in this one and the hammer spinner is that the hammer spinner has a different hook on it. This has got a longer straight wire hook with a double hook keeper on it. So even if you were fishing worms, live worms, it slides up on there nice and it stays on. When you're putting plastic on, when I put a plastic on this, they're ripping the tails off when they grab the tail and stretching it out because this thing doesn't move. It really is a great hook for this, especially if you're throwing plastics like I am. So that's a difference. This particular one, I've been fishing it since last Friday with Tony. It is a simple perch fire tiger blade with a couple gold beads and a couple orange beads. Somebody asked what this is, this black dot is above it. All that is a bobber stop. It's a rubber bobber stop. Now, I don't necessarily know the reason. It stops everything from going forward. So my guess is when it's being casted and it's going through the air, this little bobber stop, and you don't put it, I have it a couple inches above my clevis where my blade is, but it keeps everything from, I would assume, sliding all the way up to where the weight is and wrapping around everything. This particular spinner, let me see if I can get the camera to get a view of it, I believe is in the neighborhood of about 18 inches long, maybe a touch more. It comes with a barrel swivel at the end. Now, this particular weight that I'm using is one of Brian Hammond's weights that you get when you buy one of his spinners. This is a 3/8 ounce lead weight. Now it has, if you look just right there, it has a barrel swivel, a number 10 barrel swivel molded into each end, okay? Now I just have a simple snap at the end of my line, so I can take this off, you know, and I can do anything I want with this rod now. I can put a jigging wrap on there, blade bait, swim bait, you name it. So I hook this into the top one like this, and then I have put a snap on the end that hooks to my barrel swivel that's on my spinner. So there's 1, 2, 3 barrel swivels in line between the line and this spinner. I don't know how many of those you need, but I know that there should be at least one of them in there, just because you're going to get line twist casting it, going through the air. It flies and spins and whatever. So you don't have to use this fixed weight. Now Don the other day was using just a worm weight, a cone-shaped worm weight, and he had it on his main line above his snap where it went to the swivel on the spinner. I'm sure he caught fish with it, and he caught more fish with it than I did. So I'm sure it works just fine. Again, the only thing I would do differently with that, and I have a lot of worm weights. You could run a tungsten worm weight. You could do whatever you wanted to. I think, personally, I would peg it just so it's not flying up and down that line, whether it's chafing, whether it's anything. I don't want it, or if you're trying to rip it out of the weeds and it stops, I don't want it to sink farther down the line. I like it pegged. You could use a bead chain trolling weight in various sizes if you wanted. That would work just the same. So that's my rig. I think there are certain things that you want to have. Another thing that I will tell you is most of these casting spinners have big willow leaves on them. That to me is also not mandatory. When Mike and Tony and I fished together last Friday, Mike caught that monster, that 22 1/4 inch walleye on a small Colorado blade. Bigger than a quarter, smaller than a $half. I was throwing to Colorado this morning. It was one of the presentations that got bit and the tail got taken off it. So I don't think it matters. Matter of fact, tomorrow I may come out and bring a couple of those smiley face blades that I tie up. Those things are super, super shiny, flashy, slow. You know, you can fish them and they're light. I don't think blade matters. I know the theory behind the willow leaf on this is as it's spinning through the water like this, it doesn't go out that far. It kind of stays more like that. The theory is that it's tall enough. Here's the hook point. It's tall enough that when it's moving through the water, it's keeping your presentation weedless. It doesn't. I mean, you still get weeds on it. If you're bringing it through the heavy weeds, you're still going to get weeds on it. But it definitely helps. But a big Colorado could do the same thing. You could run these in tandem. There's any number of combinations, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think the bigger thing is you just got to find a stretch of weeds with fish in it. Because I don't know that they're going to be that picky and selective. But I am a big fan of keep trying. Try it until it doesn't work, or if it never works, then try something else. So, all right, that's our morning, everybody. Oh, lastly, I had multiple people ask me why I switched suddenly to doing this when I was catching fish jigging. No other reason other than I just feel like doing something different. Giant bald eagle flying right there. Isn't that beautiful? There's a pair of them that live out there on the island, and they fly back and forth into the big swamp right here at Toad Harbor. I'm right off the drop-off in Toad Harbor, fishing this weed line. And while I'm gawking at birds, which I typically do, I'm hung up in the weeds. So yeah, for me, it's really just about switching it up and doing something different. And I also have a right shoulder that sounds a lot like a coffee grinder, which is why you haven't seen me, and it's been bothering me a lot this year. So you haven't seen me fish a lot of jigging wraps, and you haven't seen me snap jigging really any jigging wraps this year. My shoulder just hasn't been able to take it. And a lot of people have commented about my jigging stroke on the blade bait, how it's I've heard people use terms like gentle or slow or methodical. Part of it is the physicality of doing this every day. My shoulder is in tough shape, and it's not going to get fixed anytime soon, and I don't know if I'm going to let anybody cut it open either. So I'm just fishing the way I'm fishing right at the moment, and this is much easier on my shoulder right at the moment to just cast and reel. So, and it's fun, and it's different, and it puts you in different water because you're in searching for weed beds and breaks. It also teaches you to go and find, because once you find that weed line, once you find that weed edge, now you can fish inside the weed line, but once you find that outside weed edge, in the walleye and smallmouth world, you can do almost anything you want out there. So, okay, I'm going to go and throw a spinner in it. I could throw a spinner bait in it. I could throw a swim jig. This is for walleyes. Maybe not the swim bait or the swim. Maybe not the spinner bait, although I've caught walleyes on spinner baits out here, looking for bass. You could do anything you want. If you get that weed edge marked on your graph, you troll the outside of it with whatever you want. Shallow diving crankbaits, or that weed edge is it's a highway. It's a main travel corridor. It's like going in the woods and finding a deer run. Those fish travel that up and down, in and out. And usually that first 20 or 30 feet in from the weed edge is the best, but that doesn't always hold true. I'm just saying as a general rule. But it puts you in different spots, and it has you looking for different things, and it's fun. I love to jig walleyes. I love it. I love it. I love it. As you can tell, I've been doing it for 100+ days now, straight. But nothing is ever any one thing all the time. And that's not all I do, and it's not all I want to do, and it's not all I'm going to do. So this is something a little different, and it's been real enjoyable this week, and I don't see any signs of myself stopping it. I'm sure I will be jigging, I'm sure I'll be jigging again soon, but for right now, I'm enjoying this. And the bite's a lot of fun. You really feel that tick, tick, tick. A lot of times with a jig, or jigging, whether it's a blade, a jigging wrap, a lot of times you get that on the lift. You're coming up on your next one, and it's heavy, and oh, there he is. He grabbed it on the way down. This is a little different because you have constant tension, and you are pulling it through the water, and you feel that, you feel that fish whether it's big or small, and they all, that first initial tick is all the same, whether it's a perch, a sunfish, a walleye, a pickerel, a smallmouth, a largemouth I caught yesterday on it. And that turns me on. That gets me going. It makes me excited. I love that, you know, I wish we had more of that fish in our jigging presentations where you really felt that fish. You know, I like that feeling. That's what gets me going. So that's my story for today, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me out here this morning. Have a great hump day. And no matter what, I'll tell you, I'm already seeing some people making comments about their positivity experiment, and they're trying to be positive in every situation as best they can. And they're seeing results. So I encourage everybody to really mindfully to pay attention and to really try to give that a shot and be as positive as you can in all situations. And you will see positive things come back to you. I believe that firmly. I'll say I promise you because I really, truly believe it. What you give out, you get back. You give good out, you give good back. You give crap out, you get crap back. And so if we avoid the crap that we give, if we avoid the negativity that we give, and we give out positive, we're going to get back positive. Whether you're fishing, whether you're dealing with anything, life, people, doesn't matter. You put good out, you're going to get good back. Positive vibes, everybody. Gotta love it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Channel's doing great. We're doing great. We got a lot of people watching us every day, and I encourage all those that are watching to share this and to share that my daily report. We have a new video up last night, which is really pretty awesome. It was a Friday and Saturday. And Friday I was out here jigging on the jet ski and I smoked the walleyes pretty good. And the Saturday morning I went and did my first trip up on Lake Ontario for a good friend of mine, Todd Sheltra, Strike Zone Charters. I was running the first mate that day, and we caught a limit of browns up there on the lake. Right now, the salmon fishing has went from 0 to 100 in about 2 days. They're smoking them up there on the big lake. So if you get a chance to go to Lake Ontario salmon fishing in the next month and a half, I would take it. So thanks, everybody. I said it 3 times now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, keep your tip up.